We are about to start a fabulous new talk about planes, trains, and risk assessments. Thinking like a security consultant. Take it away.
Testing, can everybody hear me? Is it working? Awesome. All right, hello everybody. My name is Marissa. I'm really excited to be here today. A longtime volunteer, first time talking, so thank you for joining me. My talk is called Planes, Trains, and Risk Assessments. And the reason why I chose this talk is twofold. Number one, people glamorize travel when you're a consultant. I'm happy to talk to anybody about that. I hated it. I didn't hate it, but it just wasn't for me. But number two, when you're a security consultant, you're really required to think holistically. When I saw B-Side started an industry challenges track, I wanted to show security practitioners that not only do we have the fast-paced realm of IT security and cybersecurity technology, but we need to check our foundational skills. You may not realize this, but sometimes the way you approach things may be the barrier between you and accurately assessing risk. So the things that we're going to review today aren't super technical. They're small tips and tricks that I learned, and they are able to help me fully and accurately assess risk within an organization. I'm going to be talking in the context of consulting projects, but you can definitely bring a lot of these tips and tricks back to your everyday job. All right, so introductions first. Hello, my name is Marissa. I am a GRC consultant at CISO. We are hiring, so please, we have a table back there, please check it out. I believe we have a DevSecOps position and a senior GRC consultant position open. And I really do love my job. I'm not saying that because my bosses are sitting right here. I actually do really like my job, so please check it out and see if you would be a good fit. I also work in operations at Women in Tech Pittsburgh. What our goal is to really help upscale women in technology in Pittsburgh. I think to summarize that, we want to help them get paid more. So we provide opportunities for women to enter the tech industry as well as be promoted once they're inside it by offering them skills. Thank you. Before I was at CISO and WIT, I was a senior SAP security and GRC consultant, where I got to learn these skills from the best of the best at a Big Four. And I got to travel to like 10 countries and most US states. It was really fun and exciting for that time of my life. And then my industries were technology, healthcare, food and beverage. Those were the ones that I primarily worked in. Personally, I love to cook. If you know me, if I like you, I've cooked for you before. I love to work out. I go to Mecca Fitness in Mount Lebanon if anybody else goes there. And then travel. I was trying to do 30 countries before I'm 30, but unfortunately, COVID set that off. I'm stuck at 19. If you look up there, that's my dog Tulip. I foster failed her earlier this year. That's my boyfriend. And she was not super excited to be picked up, but I love that photo. All right, so before we get started on our deep dive, I really wanted to level set and talk about what exactly security consulting is. I think my favorite question when I tell people that I'm a consultant is, what do consultants do? A lot of people don't really fully understand. So I think when you're a security consultant, you have three main objectives. Your first objective is to assess, implement, and redesign security measures. So when you're talking about implementations, it could mean implementing anything, secure coding process, standing up vulnerability scanners. I do GRC, so I do governance, procedures, processes, things like that. So what you start with is either with a client who doesn't have anything and you're going to give them something, or they have a tool and maybe they're not using it appropriately to best practice, or maybe they're not using the full extent of their tool, so you're just going to help them use their tools to their best ability. Then next is the things we know and love, finding threats and vulnerabilities and remediating them. And then most near and dear to me in IT security is the CIA triad. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data. And I want to mention that also when we're talking about this, we're talking about true consulting. There's sometimes, when I talk about true consulting, it is project-based, so has a clear scope, beginning, middle, and end. Sometimes when you talk about consulting, you're talking about staff augmentation, which is you go and you fill a role for a couple months until they find a full-time employee. What we're talking about is experts knowing things and doing them within a client. So next is soft skills, and I personally do not believe that we talk about soft skills enough in IT in general. And soft skills, when you're in consulting, is the most important part of your job. My theory is if you're a good consultant, you could literally not know anything and bullshit your way out of anything and go and Google and find the answer later. So talking about some of the soft skills that I really appreciate in consulting, number one is leadership. You want to lead your clients, you want them to be confident in you, and you also want your teams to be confident in you. If they believe that you can get them there, and you actually should be able to get them there, then you're gonna have a really good working relationship. Next is charisma. If you don't look like you wanna be there, your clients don't need to hire you back to be there. So having charisma and being enthusiastic about what you're doing is really important, especially in consulting when you're doing it over and over again. Third is reading between the lines. This is the most important soft skill that you have in consulting. In business, we talk about people, process, and technology. And in people, process, and technology, those are the ways that you need to solve problems. So in a security practitioner's example, let's say somebody comes up to you and says, hey, my employees' passwords are being hacked. What is your first thought? Probably put in a technical control. Multi-factor authentication, something like that. But when you go back to people, process, and technology, you might realize that it might not need a technical control. You might just need to train your people. So if you train your people not to give away their passwords, how to stop phishing attempts, things like that, then you're able to read between those lines and solve their problems, because maybe they can't afford a technical control, or maybe that's just not right for them right now. And then finally, adaptability. Adaptability is extremely important because when you're a consultant, you have a specific timeline to do things. And sometimes you go down a path and you realize it's not working, but you still have to finish by November 30th. So what you should do is stop, take a step back, and realize that what you're doing isn't working, and reassess and move forward. Sometimes doing that can really hurt your pride. So when you're adaptable and you realize that it's just part of life, that makes you more flexible and able to solve problems. All right, so talking about what types of jobs are out there, I literally just Googled this. Some of these things I don't know what they are. But the point of this was to show that when you're talking about security consulting, anything that you can do in industry, you can do as a consultant. If you're really good at it, the redundancy might be great for you. Sometimes people don't like that. They don't like doing projects, but personally for me, I like having a beginning and end. I like starting over and solving different problems. Yep, so these are the types of jobs. All right, so to make sure we're on the same page, I wanted to walk you through exactly the steps of like a consulting project realization, because we will be walking through what a consulting project is. So here, you have your client identifying a gap. This gap could be a risk that they found when they were looking in their systems. They could be a new company and they just want to start thinking about security. It could be from a third party. Let's say that they want to work with a government contractor and that government contractor says that they need to be CMMC compliant or something like that. So first the client identifies a gap, and then a consulting firm creates a proposal. This could be you have a good relationship with them and they want to hire you, or they could put out a request for proposal, which is it's called an RFP, and that's where people throw numbers around and pitch things. Client makes a decision who they want to work with, then they hire a consulting firm to do the work. If you see this fun lit up box here, this is where we're going to be living in the context of our presentation. So first you have an assessment kicks off, you do interviews, you do the technical assessment, you create a report, recommendations are proposed, the client accepts your recommendations, and then the implementation work starts. This is extremely straightforward. A lot of things can go wrong in this piece. Let's say that you don't do a good job, you make recommendations, but your client doesn't like the way that you went about that. They could go with another consulting firm and, not look at you. So this is an extremely straightforward workflow. All right, so let's get our project started. Our client puts forth a request for proposal, and that is the client wants to become ISO compliant due to a third-party requirement, and they need an assessment completed to have a better understanding in order to become compliant. So congratulations, everybody. We won the assessment, so it's time to get started. So it's really important to point out that risk is not arbitrary. Risk is not arbitrary. There's a lot of thought leaders in this room who probably believe that things are riskier than they might be or have different opinions about how risky things could be. But when we're talking about clients, we need to make sure that we're always working towards best practice. There always needs to be a framework, something, regulation, scoring system, something like that to talk about. Everybody's least favorite word is because the auditor said so. Everybody hates that. So when we say risk isn't arbitrary, you should always use a framework, regulation, or scoring system when discussing with your clients. So how do we know which one to use? With the client, in our example, somebody told them they need to be ISO compliant, so they're gonna try to be ISO compliant, but that might not always be the case. You might come with a client who says, oh, I wanna be CMMC level 5, and they've never done security before in their life. So you need to make sure that you are communicating and honest and upfront with them that, hey, maybe CMMC 5 is not achievable. Let's start with ranking you at a CMMC 3, do the analysis, and see where that goes. So being open and honest with your clients about what is acceptable will help build that trust. All right, so now we're going to start our interviews with the client. So what interviews are going to do is help you better understand what's happening. And it's really important to make sure that your interviewees feel at ease. When you come in and you're a security consultant, the first thing people are going to think is that you're here for their jobs. And fortunately, in security, we're not typically there to cut out jobs. That's what management consultants do. Just kidding, I actually don't know what management consultants do. I just heard they cut jobs. So starting off with a light conversation, finding things in common, making sure everybody's relaxed before going into the interviews is definitely going to make sure that you're getting the most accurate answers. If you look up here, you can see I have animal crackers. One time I went to Germany, Italy, and the Czech Republic, and we had to do workshops there. We flew with an entire suitcase packed with these things, these frosted animal crackers. And that was a really good icebreaker for us because we could, we're like, oh, hey, have you ever tried these before? And the overall analysis was they were too sweet because that's what everybody in Europe says about American snacks. But it really helped us form a relationship, especially in a place where maybe not everybody speaks the same language as you. We had to use translators, but this was a really good way to help bridge that gap. So making the interviews feel at ease, and then second is recognizing that not everybody is a security expert. Making sure you level set and come prepared with direct questions is really going to help you in the long run. Even if the conversation doesn't go that way, if they are security experts, I like to use this conference as an example. I meet a lot of people here who are super passionate about a lot of things. But they don't really level set, they don't ask me my knowledge, and they start talking at me. And even though they're really excited, I can't express the same amount of excitement because I don't really know what's going on. And I leave that conversation feeling, a little off. And that's not what we want to do, because people are less likely to talk to you and be honest with you if they're not sure exactly what's going on. So if you can recognize those gaps and come from a place of knowledge and collaboration and understanding, you're definitely more likely to get the information that you want out of those interviews. And then finally, and this I think is the most important part, always make sure you're asking for evidence. Those evidence could be design documents, like post-incident reports, network diagrams, all those things. We're not auditors. We're not here to comb through and tell them everything that's wrong. But what you can do is, double check and make sure that they're actually doing what they say they're doing. All right, so understanding the types of folks you'll be interviewing, it is an important strategy to also produce the most accurate information. I picked the 4 biggest archetypes that I see. I would like to note that these are just archetypes that I made up. I am not coming to attack anybody in this room. So you should be able to identify the type of person when you're in that kind of pre-conversation where you're trying to make them feel at ease. They might say, oh, hey, this is something that I'm really good at, or hey, this is something that maybe I don't have a lot of information about. So we're going to start off with Security Sal. I recognize that some people in this room might be Security Sal, where they have a program that they set up and it's their baby and they've done so much with it, or maybe they just came in and they're kind of at odds because this isn't, they're still trying to understand the program, things like that. He may be ready for this change, or he may think that you're here for his job. So I think that the best approach for this person is to be really interactive with them and don't call them out. So recognizing their strengths is super important and using those to your advantages. And when you talk about their weak points, you need to use that as a point of opportunity to help you build. So when Security Sal is like, oh yeah, I built, maybe this is something that I really want to improve on, jot that down and have that in your findings, because that's a way that you can help build that trust and build that relationship, and then he knows that you're here to help. Next is Annie. Anxious Annie is probably part of the business. HR is somebody that we talk with a lot, maybe finance. I used to do SOX controls. And Anxious Annie has no idea why she's there, and she doesn't think that her job has anything to do with cybersecurity, IT security, anything like that. I think the best approach is coming with really direct and straightforward questions, get in, get out, get going, and also using this as a chance to explain to her why exactly she's there. So making sure that they understand their role in security while also being really direct and straightforward will make them feel like they actually understand, okay, I'm a puzzle piece, and this is how I fit exactly into this role. Next, we have Talkative Tom. Talkative Tom will tell you everything about the company, things that he does not believe he should be telling you, things that, maybe he tells you about the bagel he ate for breakfast this morning. Talkative Tom really just likes to talk. And I know we talked about collecting evidence. If something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So definitely making sure that you're going back and you're double checking exactly what he's saying is the truth before you trust everything that he says. And then my final archetype is CEO Carl. I'm not talking about my boss Joe over here, but CEO Carl is obligatory older white man. So CEO Carl is probably funding this project and wants to make sure that everything goes super smoothly. CEO Carl probably got in his role because he knows best practice, and that's probably what he's going to tell you is happening within his company. He's not going to recognize that there might be gaps because he doesn't work and see the everyday. He's signing off on process documents. He's signing off on risks. He's giving money to these programs, so he's going to tell you that everything is operating smoothly and exactly as intended. The problem with CEO Carl is if he's in the room when you're interviewing everybody else, what are they going to do? They're going to lie. They're going to say that their program is running great and everything is wonderful because they don't want CEO Carl to think that they're not doing their jobs. So making sure that he's not in the room during these interviews is really going to help you get the most accurate information. All right, so we got our information. Let's get our presentation ready. So the art of not surprising and building trust. Your final presentation should not be the first time that everybody is seeing what you're offering. I put some ideas of the way that you can give these updates, having regular status meetings, giving draft reviews, working sessions as you're producing the report, or at the end of every interview, maybe working with them. But I think for the best bang for your buck, it's going to be quick wins. What a quick win is something that wouldn't be an entire project. I'm going to use Brandon for an example. Brandon had a security awareness program that he hasn't put forward yet. I hope that's okay, Brandon. So yeah, he has a security awareness program, and a quick win is, hey, publish this. That's definitely one of the things that you could do that's like, this is really quick, get that forward, and you're going to check that box. Also, another little push, maybe they're working on a procedure document that they haven't published yet, something like that. And what that does is really show that you care, because you do care about your clients. You really do care about the things that they do, and you really want them to know that. So it's not just here for money. All right, so when trying to communicate risk to a group, it's really important that it's easy to understand. The way that I like to do this the most is using an impact matrix, starting with high impact, low effort, and working your way around. So a lot of the times, the people that you're delivering to, they're probably high level. Maybe one person in the room is the person that you've been working with, but they might not be super knowledgeable about risk rankings, risk ratings, things like that. When you use this matrix, what this does is it allows you to help them prioritize. So if it's somebody that maybe has a lot of money, you could probably start high impact, low effort, and then move to high impact, high effort. If it's somebody who's just trying to get their program, you're going to start high impact, high effort, and work your way around. So this is very easy. You can find it at a glance, and it'll help you build a roadmap so everybody better understands what the risk is. Excuse me one second. All right, so next is breaking things down monetarily. This is my least favorite approach, but it's one that's worth mentioning. So I had a chemicals client, and I did an ITAR assessment at a chemicals client, and they did an ITAR assessment because they were in the talks for having a government contract. And when I walked through this beautiful, I think it was the longest report I ever did, it was like 43 pages. I walked through 43 pages with them, and they're like, we don't care, because we got this contract and we have to do it, so just give me a number. So I was like, okay, your number's $2 million, congratulations. But when you lay things out monetarily, make sure that you're always also telling them exactly what they're going to get from that. So you definitely need to make sure that it's presented with maybe the risk of not implementing. So, hey, if you don't implement, you're going to miss out on this $2 million worth of contracts. Or, hey, if you don't implement, then there's other clients out there that are looking for this framework assessment, things like that. You're going to make sure that they know what they're missing if you're presenting monetarily first. All right, so tips on making recommendations, the do's and don'ts. I'm going to start over here with the do's. I think these automation and tool reuse is something that everybody's probably familiar with. Whenever you're making sure that you're using tools that clients already have, they're going to be more likely to work with you because they don't have to spend as much money. And I think it's going to be easier for you because they already know these tools and you don't have to do a lot of training. And automation is something that speaks to everybody in this room, I'm sure. Making sure that less hands-on work. The big one in here is adjusting recommendations while still maintaining integrity. So let's say a client says they don't have money to invest in a huge risk that they have. What I would recommend is making sure that you're breaking it down into smaller, more manageable pieces, because what might happen is if you seem to reduce the risk, they might think, oh, this risk isn't as big of a deal is because, we can't afford it, so we need to rush over it. You need to maintain the integrity of the risk. You need to make sure that you're still communicating that it's important, even though they can't afford it, or you have to find ways to work around that. And the don'ts. So do not exaggerate risk. What I mean by this is, as a consultant, they're coming to you and trusting you because they really care. Oh, excuse me. They're coming to you and trust you because they really think that you're the expert. I'm going to use zero trust as an example. I really think that zero trust is just a way for consultants to sell more work. And because you're saying, oh, you need to lock everything down, that's not true. I mean, maybe it is in certain scenarios, but with zero trust, you're just selling more and making those recommendations when maybe they don't need it. So making sure that you maintain integrity when you're discussing risk and only doing what's necessary is extremely important. Next is back channeling. I know we talked about earlier in the presentation that with back channeling, you should be telling them things. Don't be inconsistent. I think when I say back channeling, that's the problem. If you say something's a big deal, but then on your presentation you say it's not, that makes you lose trust in your client. That makes the client relationship lose trust, and they might not want to work with you in the future. And then finally, be realistic. Don't over or undersell effort. If another consulting firm is saying that it's going to take 6 months and you say that it's going to take 2 months, they're going to be like, why are these people saying it's going to take 6 months when you say it's going to take 2 months? Are you not doing your job? Or, are you doing something really fast where these people might only be just, be dragging it out for more money, things like that. So making sure that you're accurately assessing things is really important for not only you, but to manage your clients' expectations. All right, so congratulations, we won the implementation. Let's deliver for our clients. All right, so independence and integrity. You are the security expert, and they're coming to you. You have to protect their data. As security consultants, we may have access to things like insider trading information. I worked at a large beverage company that extremely protects their secret, what is that? Their recipe in a vault. Yeah, their secret sauce, SpongeBob, excuse me. So I worked at a large beverage company that protects their recipe in a vault. And I was digging through their sandbox when I was still an SAP consultant, and I found a bill of materials for a recipe for their thing. And I was like, my heart stopped because I'd seen it in this vault in the, down in Atlanta. And I went and I told someone, I was like, hey, you guys have a bill of materials here. This is your recipe, and you really protect this. I said something because I didn't want anybody else to find this, when I was just digging around in a sandbox. And they were like, no, it's sanitized, you're fine. We sanitized the data when we brought it down from prod. I was like, oh, thank God. I don't think I could have resisted looking, But that's what I mean by maintaining integrity. If something seems wrong or something seems like it's off, it's your job to do something about it. So let's walk through some scenarios. So these are ethics questions, kind of. So this is your ethics exam in the context of security consulting. So your client asks you to change technical configurations that do not coincide with best practice. How do you approach it? Does anybody want to try to take a guess? Yeah, slap them upside the head. Anybody? Yes. Yes, that is a great, but they still say no. Yes. 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 Sorry, he said explain the risk. He said try to bring them towards best practice. Do you have another one? Yeah. Yes. Yes. Those are all great things, and those are all the steps that we were going to walk through. Good job, everyone. So first is why. They might have a good reason. Could be, they need to let somebody in, something like that. Yeah. So first is to discuss the risk. You should be documenting as you go. Let's say they still decide that they don't want to do it. Document, document, document. If something goes wrong, you might be responsible for that. So as a trusted advisor, you want to make sure that that does not come back on you and it was their decision. Opening a risk acceptance form is one of the examples that you could take, but making sure that everything is written down so that doesn't fall back on you is extremely important. All right, scenario 2. An individual at your client says they're moving changes through proper change management channels. They say that they are, but you check the audit logs and find that they have been moving changes without approval. What do you do? Jules, anything? Yes, yes. Making sure that it doesn't come back on you is extremely important. She said get a copy of the audit logs to make sure they don't come back on you. Anybody else? Yes? Yes, yes. That's a great one. Yes. That's a great one. So he says go to the proper channels. He says talk to them and see if maybe the process is too complicated. Those are all great examples. So I think what I would do if I was in this situation is first discuss it with the individual, see exactly why. They might not know that they're doing it wrong, and educating them would be a great first step. If they still continue to do it, it's your job to raise it as a red flag, escalate, make sure that they are finding that that you're taking them through the correct path. It's your job to be that advisor, so making sure that you tell them exactly what they're doing wrong, or making sure you're telling the client exactly what they're doing wrong, because if they know that you saw it, it might come back on you, and you definitely don't want that. All right. So good job, everyone. So great. We continually sold work, and we all buy BMWs, and we live happily ever after. So thank you all for being in my consulting firm. So discussing key takeaways, risk is not arbitrary, making sure you pick your favorite framework, level setting who you're talking to, making risk easy to consume for all parties, so making sure everybody knows exactly what you're talking about and they understand, maintaining integrity, and then finally, don't write HIP on your resume. I didn't talk about this, but I think this one's really important to hit on because I'm sure that this happens all the time. Huh?
I throw those ones right.
He says he throws them away, and that's coming from a security consulting CEO. All right, does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Talking earlier about some of like the ramifications if you don't document properly.
Yeah.
You went into like what are some of the things that can happen if you make a mistake?
So from a security consulting perspective, if you make a mistake, you're going to get fired. I mean, it's just like that. They're paying you to be there. Mistakes do happen, and I think that there's a certain threshold of trust and integrity that people can understand. But if you're consistently messing up, if you're consistently having problems, then your client can just simply choose not to work with you anymore. So I think those are some of the ramifications. When you work for like a big four like I did before, sometimes that person would be kicked off the project, and they could continue their project, because those are typically millions of dollars. So those are some of the ramifications that I've seen. Thanks for the question. Anybody else? Yes.
So what are some of the biggest challenges to preparedness practices? Like, you always see to do what there is a new thing, right? Every client is different, so what is there? Some practices you
So I only heard the first part of the question. So what are some of the challenges that I've seen that don't align to best practice?
In your consulting, like all your years of consulting, right? It's not the same with each client. So what are some of the challenges you face as a consultant, even with all your experiences, that you still trying to overcome?
I think right now is employment. A lot of our clients have, there's not enough people to support. I think that's been, I've been a consultant, I think going on 6 years now. So there's not enough shoes to fill the roles that they have, and work does not get done on a fast enough timeline. And when work is not getting done on a fast enough timeline, that pushes you back. So I think that's one of the big challenges. Another one is with people. A lot of the time, like when I'm talking about security sal, like I've been working with people who had been in their jobs for like 40 years, and they don't want to be told that what they're doing is wrong. So making sure that you're really developing a good working relationship with that person is very, very important, because then they might be able to, move, make changes and adapt appropriately. Thank you for the question. All right. Oh, money is a big problem too. I want to say that. Nobody has money. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you for coming. I really don't use social media. I do have my LinkedIn here. If you find me on Twitter, you can use OSINT to do that. And then I want to do a shout out to Women in Tech Pittsburgh as well. We do have a lot of opportunities. We're going to do a Kubernetes workshop in Q1 of next year. So you can contact me directly or just start following us on socials. And we'll be doing a new Hacking Barriers, which is a workshop for women of color entering the tech industry in Pittsburgh. So, all right, thank you everybody, I appreciate it.